We are looking at the XU4 today.
Yes.
And we have looked at the XU4 in the past. You and I have looked at it. We've done a lot of fun stuff. We've built it into a big chassis. We've done all that kind of stuff. But this week we're working with just the board, just that board.
Okay.
But the first thing I want to do with the XU4 from Odroid is I want to determine what type of media I'm going to use.
Okay.
This week, what we're going to do is we're going to create a DNS server which is using a software called Pi-hole, P-I-H-O-L-E.
All right.
It sounds obscene, but it's not. It's actually a black hole for DNS entries that you want to block that you can place on your own network. And the Pi aspect is it was really designed for the Raspberry Pi.
Right.
But we're going to learn how to install it on a completely different system. And why would I want to do that? Why wouldn't I just go with a Raspberry Pi, Jeff? Any guesses?
Well, quad core, maybe.
Because the Raspberry Pi is only quad core.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
You got with the
XU4 is eight cores.
That's right.
Sure. But a DNS server doesn't really need a whole lot of processing power. Consider this. We're looking at, this is not a proxy.
Okay.
This is a DNS server.
Right.
Those who understand what that means know that what I'm saying is that traffic is not going to flow through this device. So the gigabit Ethernet capabilities, the gigabit Ethernet capabilities of the XU4, while beneficial and will actually speed things up, it's not really the selling point versus the 10 over 100 of the Raspberry Pi, but definitely a good upgrade. It's going to impact performance. But because we're not passing through data, we're just requesting DNS information.
Trying to remember all the... does it have to do with like the specs of the Odroid?
It does. It has to do with what... I mentioned it right at the top here. We have to determine what kind of storage we're going to use.
Right. Okay.
That was a hint.
Right. Totally missed that one.
Raspberry Pi is limited to a pretty slow micro SD card slot. Okay.
Yep.
So SD cards, as you know, while fantastic and they're getting bigger and they're getting better, they are comparably unreliable.
Yes.
When you compare them to SSD storage or eMMC storage and those other types of storage mediums.
Right.
Okay.
And in this case, yours is hooked up to an SSD.
Well, the HC1 is.
Right.
We're not using an HC1 today, although this could...
Right, we're just looking at the board.
I think it's an important... I think it's an important fact to say we could do this on an HC1. We could do this on a Raspberry Pi. We're choosing to do this on an Odroid XU4.
Right.
We could do this on pretty much any of the Pine 64 boards. I mean, we could. And they also have that advantage. But what I'm looking for out of the XU4 this week is that eMMC capability. Right. I'm going to be able to use an actual eMMC storage card instead of SD. So I've got that ultra reliability plus the performance boost that provides. Pine 64 boards, they also offer the eMMC capability. So this is not something that you have to use an XU4 for. It just happens to be what we are demoing tonight. But everything that we're going to learn here can be done on an XU4, on any of the Pine 64 boards, on an ASUS Tinkerboard, on a Raspberry Pi. This is where we're at with single board computers.
I love.
We can just, you can use whatever, but we're looking at it and saying, okay, we want eMMC. So what are we going to, that just rules out Raspberry Pi.
Yeah.
Okay, because we want reliable storage. Why does it matter? This device is going to become our DNS server for our network, be it for home or for your office. We want to block things that are not wanted within our network. That is advertisements.
Okay.
I'm going to circle back to that because this is going to have a performance boost on our network as well. But also pornography and things like that. Things that we want to block from our office network. Or you and I are parents. We're parents of young kids. We're really thinking about it with March break and the kids are home and they're on the computers a lot. And so it's like, it's something that we really want to protect our kids from. And that's as simple as it is. So, but in an office network, in a home network, these are all good things as well. So we're going to do that with these devices, but we need them to be ultra reliable because if it ever goes down, we're going to have the perception that our internet is down.
Oh,
okay.
All right.
A DNS server is what resolves domain names.
Right.
DNS is domain name server. So when I type google.com, it first goes to a DNS server and says, what IP address should I be routing your traffic to? And then it goes out to the Google server via the IP address. Now, if my DNS server is down, I'm going to type google.com and it's going to say, I don't know where to go, page not found.
Right.
Okay, so we need it to be ultra reliable. That's why we're staying away from the Raspberry Pi, and instead we're going with eMMC storage. So again, Pine 64, Odroid XU4s, any of those kinds of boards that support the eMMC card. It's going to be a lot more reliable and therefore much better suited for something like what we're doing here today, which is mission critical for my network. I don't want people calling me up while I'm at work and saying, you know, my wife or my kids saying, internet's down. Oh, no, it's not. The Raspberry Pi has gone offline or something like that, or the SD card is corrupted.
And that's why you need NEMS to let you know.
It would let me know. NEMSLinux.com. There you go. All right, so I'm just going to jump over here where we've got that XU4, and let's get to it. So you know how an SD card works, Jeff?
Yes.
Obviously, the SD card just kind of plugs into the side there right next to the HDMI. That is an option on the XU4. However, as I mentioned, we want to use the eMMC, but it's not accessible in this case. So I actually leave the screws out of these cases. I'm not really keen on it because I like to be able to access my eMMC. So I actually just kind of unsnap it, and then I've got access. Oh, by the way, this is the real-time clock that I mentioned on episode number 598. That's the battery for the real-time clock, so that's a little accessory that you can buy for $6, and that will keep your time. There's the eMMC port, Jeff.
Yep.
That's where I'm going to plug in my quote-unquote hard drive. All right. So an eMMC, it kind of looks like an SD card, but it snaps onto this USB reader, which I use to flash it the same way I do with an SD card. But it's not an SD card. It has this connector on the bottom, and that's going to connect it directly to the Odroid XU4 or whatever other eMMC-capable SBC that you're using. And it's as simple as that. So that's the hard drive.
Wow.
The only other thing with the XU4 that I need to make sure is, see the switch here? Yep. This determines what your boot device is. So you can see it's either SD or eMMC. Make sure that you select that, otherwise it's not going to boot because we don't have an SD card in. And there's the SD card slot right above there as well. So that's really all there is to doing that. Now, I should mention, I've already pre-installed, you saw me take this off of the USB adapter. I've already pre-imaged using Etcher Maverick's Debian Stretch, cat5.tv/mev. It's a free download, and that is the Debian Stretch install that I prefer for my Odroid device.
Okay.
So we'll bring that over here and plug it in right here at the desk. Let's jump back over on the camera, and that's all there is to it. So I've got Ethernet and power. Right. Jeff, that's all we need.
That's right, yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, because the hard drive's already in it.
Yeah, I've already flashed. So remember, that's the first step. I need to flash Maverick's Debian image. So it is just a base Debian install. Debian Linux on a little device like that who can't fit that on their network?
Exactly.
Right? It's got gigabit Ethernet. It's got a power adapter that uses a barrel plug. It does have USB 3 and everything else that you would expect. And this particular one, this is the Odroid XU4Q, which is the quiet model. Q stands for quiet. And that's the one with the heatsink rather than a fan, which is just one less thing to fail.
Yes.
I'm all for let's rule out the ability for things to fail.
Yes.
Let's make it reliable.
I like that.
And these things are fantastic. Okay, so I'm going to, first of all, you need to determine the IP address now that it's booted. Presumably it is booted. It's connected to Ethernet and everything is lit up.
Right.
I do that because it starts up as DHCP. If you go into your router, look at the DHCP pool, and you're going to see one called Debian Stretch, and that is my Odroid. Because I've booted it with Debian Stretch, and that's what it's called on there. So I'm going to jump over to my computer here. I have, there we go. I've got a nice little close-up window, and I've connected to my Odroid XU4. So I'm at 10.0.0.144. First thing I want to do is I want to type date. I see that it is March 13th, and the time is correct, and so that tells me that the real-time clock is holding its own. It's still set from the last time I booted it, and I don't have to reset anything. But that's an important step you have to do that first. Make sure that your data is correct, because if it's wrong, you're not going to be able to install anything, because all of your SSL certificates are going to fail because the date and time are going to not match up with the SSL certificates. So I'll jump back to that window here. So next step is apt update. This is going to download all the repository information. Just make sure that everything is up to date. Make sure that your computer, your XU4, knows what packages are available to it. Now, apt upgrade is going to upgrade the underlying distribution. Mine says that it's already upgraded. And then apt dist-upgrade will make sure if there's any new kernel or anything like that, it's going to download and install that for me. If you received a new kernel and things like that, make sure you reboot next. Just type reboot, because I'm logged in as root. Remember, with Maverick's image, the username to log in via SSH is root, and the password is all lowercase Odroid. That's out of the box. Remember. You can change that. All right, so let's get right into it. So this is just a Debian stretch. It's running 4.14, and I want to turn this into what they call a pie hole.
Okay.
Again, it's a DNS black hole, so that when we request google.com, it's going to respond, rather than my ISP's DNS server.
Right.
So if I'm visiting a website and it has something that I have personally said I'm objecting to that, like an advertisement, it will block that.
Okay.
But not by traditional means, but by saying, page not found.
Right.
Ad not found.
Right.
So think about that for a second, what that does for your network. So this has an adverse effect.
Okay.
If we block all advertisements at the DNS level, whenever I bring up a website that is ad heavy and it goes to download all of those ads, a traditional ad blocker will still download all those ads, but then will stop them from displaying.
Correct.
A DNS system like this, instead, will simply say, ad not found.
Now,
Ad not found, it never downloads it.
Does that work only for websites, or does that work for ads that are processed through your network on other devices?
Other devices, in apps. If you've got apps that are heavy on ads, things like that, it will block those, because it's blocking them at the DNS level.
Right.
So that app is going out to the web and resolving to sites that serve up these advertisements, and then blocks them before they actually download. So the adverse effect that creates is that your internet is perceptively faster, because you will be amazed at how much ads and tracking are happening on the internet. It really is.
Ton.
And this is a double-edged sword, because we are ad revenue supported.
Right.
And so what I'm about to show you is potentially going to cut out our ad revenue.
Is there a way to allow certain ad streams?
Yeah. However, where does the ad revenue come from? Category5.tv. You can whitelist our website, category5.tv. Ad revenue isn't generated there.
Right.
Ad revenue is generated by media.net, by Google AdSense, those things. So you're blocking Google AdSense, not Category 5 TV. So even if you whitelist us, you're still not going to see ads on our site, because we're not the ones who are hosting the ads.
That's true.
Yeah. So as I say, a double-edged sword. Consider that as you make this change on your network. But I think that there are hopefully other ways to monetize.
More Patreon.
There you go. So keep that in the back of your mind.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get to the next step. So we need to actually install Pi-hole. So first thing I want to show you, this is not a step that you need to take, but I do want to show you what this is. I'm going to go to install.pi-hole.net. It's going to redirect to an installer script that's hosted on GitHub. I don't ever need to see this. I just wanted to show you that.
Huh.
This resolves to the installer. So we know that install.pi-hole.net resolves to the installer script.
Right.
With that knowledge, armed with that knowledge, we can now grab that script. So let's do that. Let's type wget dash capital O for output to this file name, and I'm going to save it to /temp / call it whatever you want. I'm going to call it install.sh, and then I go https:// That's why our date and time are very important, because I'm connecting to a secure server. If I didn't have my correct date and time, it's going to give me an error. Install.pi-hole.net. And now it's downloaded a file called /tmp/install. So if I open that file, it is that script that we were just looking at in our browser. So I want to make that so it's executable. mod +x install.sh. So now it's executable. I am in the temp folder, but you can type /tmp/install.sh. Here in the /temp folder, I can just type /install.sh. And now, as root, I'm going to run that, and it's going to take me through the installation steps for Pi-hole on this bare bones Debian stretch system. And I say bare bones because you really want this to be a pure vanilla Debian install.
Why is that?
The reason for that, Jeff, is because if you've been using, like someone will say, well, why can't I install this on NEMS, or why can't I install this just on my computer? Well, your computer and these kinds of things, they already have DNS stuff installed and DNS routes set up. So if you try to install them, you're going to be removing packages that are possibly critical to your OS or other applications, and you're going to be possibly damaging the install. Start with a vanilla install, and then we know it's going to work. So the installer will transform your device into a network-wide ad blocker. Okay. The Pi-hole is free, but powered by your donations. Visit pi-hole.net/donate in order to contribute to this particular product. The Pi-hole is a server, so it needs a static IP address to function correctly. Keep this in mind. Now, we know that we are .144 on my network because it was given out by DHCP, so it's going to detect that and it's going to automatically configure that. Okay, this is interesting. Where do you want to get your upstream DNS from? So this means, where will the Pi-hole get the actual DNS information from? Do you want it from Google? Where do you want it? And so it comes with a bunch of options here. The interesting thing about this, Jeff, is I can choose OpenDNS.
Okay.
And with OpenDNS, it has other filters that I can add to my DNS. So it can supplement my Pi-hole in order to, I hate using that term, shut your Pi-hole there, Robbie. By selecting OpenDNS, I can actually go to OpenDNS. Let's see, OpenDNS. I want to say .org. Let's just be sure. OpenDNS.org. Yeah. So you can actually log into this site. It's a free service, and then you can do things like blocking gambling sites. So it can actually supplement the device that we're creating.
Okay.
It can help to make it even stronger. So I will, in fact, choose OpenDNS because that will be a fail-safe for me. Pi-hole relies on third-party lists in order to block ads. Notice that the terminology with Pi-hole is all about ads. We talked about, well, we can also block things like pornography. We're going to show you how to do that using the same system, but out of the box, it is strictly an ad blocker.
Right.
So you don't have to block pornography, but we're going to show you how to do that. At its base, it's just going to block ads for you, just like I've already described. I want to subscribe to all of these lists. That's fantastic. I'm going to hit Tab and OK. Enter. We're going to block ads on both IPv4 and IPv6. Enter. And it is saying, do you want to use your current network settings as a static address? So it's actually going to take what the DHCP server gave it, 10.0.0.144, and set that as a static address. Now, my router hopefully is smart enough to know that that address is already taken. Don't assign another device to that IP address. If this device is turned off for any given any amount of time, because 144 is obviously within my DHCP pool, which means my router might give that address to another computer. So you want to make sure that this is either always on or set up what's called a reservation in your router. That's the safest bet. But in this case, I'm going to say, yes, let's use it. And it's actually giving you that same warning. Read the warning. Okay. Do you wish to install the web admin interface? On. Yeah. I want to be able to admin this thing. Do you wish to install the web server? Yeah. I want to be able to actually get to my admin interface. Do you want to log queries? Yeah. I want to log it. I want to know what's going on my network. You may not need to, but maybe you just want to block it and not log it. That's fine too. We're using eMMC, so we're not afraid to write things to the disk.
Right.
Show everything. Hide the domains, whatever, you make the choice based on your needs. As dads of young kids, our needs may be a little bit different. We want to know, hey kids, what are you doing on that site?
Right. Now, you set it for show everything, so nothing's being blocked.
No. Show everything in the logs.
Oh, in the logs.
So this is a privacy thing. This is like, do I want privacy within the logs?
Oh,
keep in mind, this is my server. Only I have access to this. My wife has access to this. If I'm going to hook her up with access to it, of course. In a network of an office environment, only those who are in the IT department have access to logging in. Mm-hmm. That's that web interface.
Okay.
How verbose are the logs? This will show like what computer was accessing what website, because I've left it as show everything. It's going through. It's installing PHP. I really don't have to think about it. It's just doing its thing. It's going and going. And when we come back from a really quick break, we're going to be able to actually take a look at this. We're going to set it up in our router so that this becomes our only DNS server for our entire network. And we're going to learn how to use this to block pornography as well. It's optional, but we're going to learn how to do it. So stick around. For a limited time, get your hands on limited edition shirts from the Category 5 TV network. These high-quality shirts are manufactured by Teespring, a fundraising website, and your purchase will help support the shows we produce. Get yours today and send us your pictures to be featured on the corresponding show. Visit cat5.tv/shirts to support us and get your official network shirt today. cat5.tv/shirts. Welcome back, everybody. Before the break, we learned to turn an Odroid XU4, or any single board computer for that matter, into an ad blocking system using software called Pi-hole. Pi-hole.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
It really does.
Yeah, it's clever in a way.
Yes.
It's clever in a way. Now, while the commercial was rolling there, we had this pop up.
Oh.
It's done. Oh. Make it so, it says. Configure your devices to use the Pi-hole as their DNS server using 10.0.0.144. That's my IP address for the Pi-hole device now.
Right.
Okay? So, there's something very, very important on this screen I want you to observe. It's Robbie's DNS server password. Okay, I'm going to write this down. It's a capital W, the number 8, RPC2. Well, that's easy. -3. That's the admin web page login password. It says I can actually access that by going to 10.0.0.144/admin.
Now, I have a question about that.
Yeah.
I know it's your home network IP, but it's not listed as an HTTPS. Is there an issue with that?
No, because it's internal. So you're not accessing this from outside.
Okay, all right.
HTTPS signifies that it is an encrypted connection.
Right.
So,
but it's only an internal. It's not something like, you're at work and
you're not logging into it from work.
All right, fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay.
You could use HTTPS, but then it's going to be a self-signed certificate, which then leads to people saying, well, why am I getting warned that this is not a trusted certificate?
Yeah,
well, because it's self-signed. So keep this internal. You don't want your DNS server outside, unless you wanted to share it, but you don't need the administrator interface on port 80.
That's true.
Port 80 is the administrator interface. Don't open that up to the web. But you could share your DNS settings, server settings with family members. Allow them to use your DNS IP address. That's not for this discussion.
That's a whole other show.
That could be done. But no, there's no concern there, Jeff.
Okay.
So it's done. It says it's installation complete. See in the red at the top there? So let's zoom out a little bit and let's actually visit that IP address. So 10.0.0.144. 10.0.0.144/admin. Here we are, Jeff. We're in. Let's log in. All right, it's asking me for my amazing password, which is W8RPC2-3. Remember me for 7 days, please. I don't want to have to enter that every single time. All right, I'm in. So we can see that this is up and running. We're good to go. We don't need to memorize it. There we go. Nice. We can see graphs. We can see what is permitted, what is getting blocked, and everything else. Nothing is currently being blocked, but there are 112,381 websites that are currently on the block list. That means that those ads will be blocked.
Right.
So let's go to...
I feel like that's a low number, though.
It's pretty huge when you consider, like, these are the ad servers.
I would have thought there would have been more, though.
It's like you could just block Google AdWords and you've basically just cut 90% of the ads out of all of the internet.
That's true.
Really,
yeah.
realistically, right? Microsoft's Media.net is another one. So those are all part of it. Let's go to something like speedtest.net. I want you to see this. Here's a great site that is a good example of a site that, see how long that took to load?
Oh my goodness, and look at all the ad space.
Look at all the ads, right? So that's a site that has a lot of ads, but it's a service that we all like to frequent. Well, but why didn't it get blocked? I've got a Pi-hole all set up.
Did you not activate it?
Well, no, it's active. It's running. It's up and going. You can see on the screen, if we look up at the top right, top left here, active. Right?
Oh, is this because you didn't set your router to make it your
I didn't set my DNS.
There you go.
So on my Windows machine here, I can actually go into my terminal, CMD. On Linux, go into your terminal and type IP space A. On Windows, it's ipconfig/all. And I get all my IP addresses here. And if I find my NIC, I can see that the DNS servers that I'm using are Google. 8.8.8.8, 8.8.4.4. Those are Google's DNS servers. So they're completely, it's completely avoiding my Pi-hole entirely.
Right.
Okay. It doesn't even know that that exists as a DNS server.
Okay.
So let's make that change. I'm going to actually bring up my router. Why would I do this?
Because it's your router and everything goes through it.
Everything goes through it, Jeff. Would you want to go to every computer and change the DNS settings?
Oh, are you kidding me?
Or to every phone or every tablet that ever connects to your network?
Various internet connected devices at home.
And an ever flow of, like, the kids bring home friends and connect to your Wi-Fi and whatever, right? But so by setting it on the router, this is the endpoint that goes out to the internet. So anything, and here's the other thing. It's what serves up your DHCP, your IP address, and your DNS information to all of your computers. Right. So by changing it on the router, as soon as the device connects, it gets the DNS information from the router. So let's set it on the router so that it is for all of our network. Okay. So for me, it's DDWRT. For you, it may be different. It depends on what device you're using, and it's going to be different for every device. But here on my setup screen, I'm trying to get this centered for you folks. There we go. I see static DNS, and what is it? Google 8.8.8.8. So I'm going to change this 10.0.0.144 and get rid of my secondary. So I need to set that to 0.0.0.0, and it allows tertiary as well. I just want the one DNS server. So now all of the DNS is going to pass through .144.
Okay.
I'm going to save that record to my router. Here we go. Now, it's important to know that my computer is already connected. It's already got its IP address. So it already knows its DNS records. It's going to take some time for that to flush. It's going to take some time for it to get the new information. So you can reboot all your computers. restart all your devices, and it will probably come good. But some of them cache things.
Right.
So this change is not instantaneous on the entire network. No, this is something that, okay, now it's set. Now everything here forward is going to be connecting through this device. It's going to be using it for its DNS. Let's see if I can just simply, I don't know if I can, maybe I can just restart my network connectivity. I'm going to turn off my Wi-Fi.
All right.
And turn it back on again, which is going to reconnect to DHCP. See that at the bottom there. And let's hope that that's all it takes. There we go. Let's go into CMD, ipconfig/all. Okay, what is my DNS server? It's still Google. See? So my computer still, it still knows that.
Okay.
ipconfig/flush DNS. Let's try now.
Now, we have a question in the chat room from Mo Maravilla, and he's wondering, should you have your, like the Google DNS as your second DNS server? That way, if the Pi-hole ever goes down? No? Okay.
No. Your Pi-hole already knows to go out to OpenDNS in our case, or Google if that's what you set. If your Pi-hole goes down, it's best just have it go down. If you have secondary and tertiary DNS set in your router, then it will just choose. Your computers, your devices will choose one of those three.
Oh, so it's not like a sequential thing?
Oh, no.
Okay.
No, it's going to be just as traffic is flowing, it's going to be grabbing DNS settings from wherever. So 1 minute something will be blocked, the next minute it will not be blocked.
Right. Okay.
So we want to avoid that scenario altogether. Let's see if I'm able to get DNS yet. I'm still not seeing the DNS refresh on here, so for the sake of the show, I'm going to manually configure my DNS, but keep in mind, this is not a requirement because I've configured it in my router. My DHCP will start serving that up for me in some time. I don't want to get into how to flush DNS on every system because it can be very complicated. It can be a little difficult on some devices. So let's avoid that altogether. So I'm going to fade to black. I'm going to come back. So again, I didn't want to show you the process of doing that because that's not one of the steps that we need to do. For the sake of the show, I wanted to expedite things by pushing things along. Marshman in the chat room was mentioning maybe we need to restart our router. That's another thing that could kind of expedite things because maybe it's still serving up values from the previous DHCP settings.
Right.
But know that as devices start connecting now, because I've removed those old DNS settings and replaced it with my new DNS settings, it's going to start dishing that up.
Okay.
The other note, like I use MikroTik at the house, and on much of my many of my networks, MikroTik are great routers. But I actually had to change a setting, which I made note of. In the DHCP client settings, you actually have to turn off use peer DNS because it will do just what we were talking about. It will supplement your DNS setting with default options from your ISP. So then it will sometimes block ads and sometimes not block ads.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So let's get a real quick look at our computer here. So I've got my settings are now set. I've manually set it, but you don't necessarily have to do that. We're just expediting things. Let's go back to speedtest.net. And it's done loading.
Oh, look.
But wait a minute.
Where's the ads?
Where's the ads? But did you notice how much quicker the web was?
Yeah, that was like instant.
It just came up. The service still works. Just the ads are gone.
That's great.
Yeah. So that is fantastic. It does work. I'm getting impatient there. Yeah.
Now we have a question in the chat room, and I don't know if it's something you know the answer to. It's from Yuger Abba. Sorry if I said that wrong.
Hiya.
Is it possible to create some groups? For example, some users will see the ads and others are not. Is that possible with this software?
That I don't know the answer to.
Okay.
Jeff.
All right then.
Sorry. Something maybe to get into the pi-hole.net forums, into their community, and ask those kinds of things. I haven't dug that deep into it yet.
Okay, fair enough.
So, all right.
You haven't gotten that far into the hole.
Yep. Exactly. So, so let's get a look at the interface here. Let's jump back to our pi-hole interface. And we can see already it's blocked 65.
Wow.
What?
That's quick.
We brought up one website.
And there was only 4
So we thought
that it loaded.
So we
Yeah,
thought, but
okay.
what did it actually block? Like, we can actually look at this now. It blocked this, who knows, secureus.imworldwide.com, ZD, doubleclick.net, that's Google, Google Analytics, so tracking me, ad services for Google, scorecardresearch.com, doubleclick.net, more ads, Google Tag Services, Google Tag Manager. So all these things are being blocked just from that one hit. 65 blocks.
Just on speed test. I feel like
just on that one site.
I feel like we should be loading, like one of those Facebook.
Oh yeah, you could
like
do the experiment. Do the experiment at home. Do the experiment at home and see how it works for you. So that this is complete. This is done. Mm-hmm. This is now ad blocking for our entire network.
Love it.
Because every time I go to a website or that website tries to load assets, it's going through my DNS and blocking things before they're downloaded. Mm-hmm. So it's faster, it's saving bandwidth, it's going to make things a lot better.
Excellent.
So now the next step, as we promised, was how can we now take the Pi-hole device and use it to protect our family or perhaps our corporate network from stuff that's illicit that we don't want them to be accessing, right? Yep. So we're using the example of pornography. It might be things like illegal downloads. It might be other, whatever else. Now, we've also used OpenDNS as our actual source for DNS. Mm-hmm. So we could then log into them and change, as I mentioned, things like we can turn off gambling sites. We can turn off social media. We can get really down to the nitty-gritty. But here with our internal device, we're going to block pornography by simply adding to the available lists. So if I go into settings, you're going to see block lists here. And my block lists right now out of the box all have to do with ad blocking. Okay. But let's get one that blocks all, the block list does nothing. It's just a list of pornographic websites, and then our Pi-hole is going to look at that list every time anything happens on our web because it's our DNS server, and it's going to block anything that's on that list.
Right,
so anything that is deemed to be to fall into that category. So I'm going to grab this from GitHub. So I'm going to head on over to github.com/Chad Mayfield. Oh, I already have it. I guess I've already been there on my laptop. That's great. And there you have it, Chad Mayfield /my-pi-hole-blocklist. And the links, as always, will be below. So if you're watching this online, make sure you check the description below, and you'll be able to grab the links directly. So here, we're just going to go into his folder called lists. There are two lists here, Jeff.
Okay.
Pi block list porn all list.
Yep.
Pi block list porn top 1 million list. So
top 1 million?
Top 1 million. So it's not the top one, it's not 1 million sites.
Right.
What he's done is he's taken Alexa results, not Alexa, sorry, I didn't mean to set off your devices. That's not the word I was looking for. What do they call it? 1 million. It is. Yes, it is.
Okay.
Why did they name it that?
I have no clue.
I know it came first. So it is. I'm not going to say the word again, but the word that just triggered all of your smart home devices, that is a ranking system on the internet. It's been around since Alta Vista days, and it is indeed called that. So what he's done is he's compared the list of all known porn websites to the top 1 million websites in the world and said, okay, well, if it's not on the top 1 million, it's probably never going to come up in accidental clicking around the internet. So let's just go with the top 1 million. It might be 10,000 sites, but it's going to be like the top ones that it will block, like it's the most likely. You don't have to block all because that's probably overkill, and it's certainly if you're doing this on a Raspberry Pi, that's going to be a performance hit on your DNS server. On an XU4, on a Rock Pro 64, you're probably not going to feel it, especially if you're using eMMC, but I would suggest that you start with the top 1 million list. It's gonna give you the best bang for the buck. Now, I don't want to click on this and have a list of bad websites come up on your screen, so I'm just gonna click on the first option, and then I'm gonna click on raw. Can I zoom in here? Would that be okay?
Maybe. We'll do that.
Well, I can. So on GitHub, well, let's just do it. Let's zoom way out. It's a sensitive subject, I know.
There we go.
Oh, can I do that? Oh, but now it's... All right. Da, da. All right, so I clicked on the list. And now, on the right-hand side... Oh, there it is. Okay. I'm going to click on raw.
Okay.
That's fine. Whatever. Okay, now grab that URL, okay? And then paste it back in here under block lists in settings. Now, save. Now that has been added, yes. Notice I pushed save and not save and update. I wanted to just show you that it's going to get added. That's fine. So normally you would hit save and update. Now in this case, I'm going to update it myself. So I'm going to go Tools, Update Gravity, and Gravity being the list of block domains. So now, because right now nothing is being added until I update Gravity. So I click that button and it goes through that list and it creates all of the entries for the DNS server. And now, if anyone on my network using the Pi-hole as my DNS server tries to access any of those sites that are on that list, it will block them.
Excellent.
It just stops it. It just, page not found.
Okay.
Problem solved.
Perfect.
Any other things that we could use Pi-hole for?
Oh, man.
You mentioned, like, games and...
Yes. Okay, so I don't know... Will this do specific times of blocking things, or is this all the time? Like, the reason I ask is, like, we homeschool our oldest. And so there's been a lot of his educational programs are online.
Yes.
So we don't want to block those websites, and we don't want to block his ability to research, but I've wanted to block, especially...
I hear where you're going with this. You want to block education during after hours.
No, I want to block his gaming sites.
Oh, during school hours. Ah, okay, the inverse of what I was thinking.
But like he uses a lot of .io websites.
Okay.
And plays a lot of those games.
Timers, no.
Okay.
However, as you saw here, Jeff, in my lists, if I go into block lists, I can disable that, save, and update. Okay? So I can actually turn off a list at will.
Oh, okay.
All right? So create a list. Create a list of sites that you don't want your child going to during certain hours and enable that list at certain times of the day and then save and update and you'll be good to go. Now, if it's just a short couple of sites that you want to be able to do, click on blacklist and let's do it. Let's go, what's one? Slither.io.
Oh, yeah, Slither.
Right? And then we'll add that. So now Slitherio is blocked, apparently. Let's find out if it really is. So I'm going to go into my terminal, command prompt here on Windows, and get close up for you. Now let's do a DNS lookup, slither.io, and then I'm just going to put 144. That's the IP address of my server.
Right.
NS lookup, pardon me, not DNS lookup. I'm thinking DNS. NS lookup. What does it resolve to? The IP address is 0.0.0.0.
It does not exist.
Page not found. If I try to go there in my browser, slither.io, this site can't be reached. What?
Okay.
What?
Excellent.
Okay, so now if I remove that, now let's go back. Oh, sorry, I just hit the delete button next to it. I apologize, I had the wrong screen up. So I had it here. Okay. Now, so right now it's as it was. Now I'm going to delete that.
Okay.
Now go back to my command prompt and let's run that same command, nslookup slither.io, and notice it's resolving an IP address now. I'm going to move that up on your screen so you can see.
Okay.
Okay. So now we're actually getting an IP address. So now if I go there in my browser, it comes up.
Okay.
See how quick that was?
Yes.
It's loading. It's loading. Blocked all the ads. Okay, so you can do block lists like that. You can add things to the block list or create your own list, put it on GitHub, and then link to it, or put it on a local server and link to it that way.
Okay.
You can absolutely do those things.
Now, will this work for things like games that have to access to the internet? So, for instance, say like World of Warcraft.
Okay.
If you knew where World of Warcraft...
You could block the server that it's connecting to, yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. All right.
Yeah, unless it uses an IP address. Because remember, this is DNS.
Oh, that's right.
Domain name resolution, which most things on the internet, on the World Wide Web, use DNS.
Right. Okay.
All right.
So really, the sky is the limit.
Really
For the
is.
most part.
Yeah, I mean,
Cool.
get creative with it. Look for lists that are for, the things that you want to be able to do. But really, it comes down to, okay, so we learned a little bit about how to protect our children from illicit things on the internet, things that, that just come up by accident sometimes,
Sure.
too. Like,
Yep.
sometimes we're doing downloads, and all of a sudden there's an ad that's really offensive. And the kids have even brought it to my attention sometimes where there's an ad that's really kind of obscene.
Yep.
It may not be pornography, but it's something that is offending to them.
Right.
And that I really, as a dad, don't want them to have to... I just don't want them to deal with that, right? You
Yep.
know what I'm saying?
Fair enough.
So I'm able to block those things, and that's a good thing. And make my internet faster and use less bandwidth.
Well, exactly.
And reduce the amount of tracking that's happening on me.
Now, this won't stop, say, like built-in ads on, say, like a YouTube feed or something. This is just ads on a web page.
Yeah, it
kind
will.
of stuff. Oh,
Yeah.
well.
It will play the video ads. So we'll
Yeah,
still
that's
get...
what I mean.
Yeah.
Those, like you're not
But
going
the
to
ads that are all surrounding it...
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the video ads will play.
Oh yeah, this is not a 100% all ads gone forever kind of thing. This is blocking all the main kind of ads that you see all around the web, like we saw in speed test there.
Right.
Just as a good example.
Okay.
All right.
Now, and this is just incoming. This isn't outgoing, right? For, like, say, for instance, you go to Amazon and you're looking for, flux capacitors. Next thing you know, all your ads have flux capacitors from Amazon. This only blocks the incoming data, not outgoing ad data.
No idea what you're talking about. If they're on one of the blocked ad servers, it's blocked.
No, yes. I meant like the data you're sending out for the purposes of like specific ad targeting. This doesn't block that information from going out to the service. It just blocks what's coming into you.
Yeah?
Okay, never mind.
I think you're overcomplicating DNS.
No, I understand that. I just, from the capabilities of the software, I'm just trying to point out it's only incoming. It's not outgoing.
This is a DNS server. So every time my computer or any device on my network tries to access suchandsuch.com,
Right.
so AmazonAds.com, whatever, it will block it.
Right.
It doesn't happen. So
Right.
if any site is tracking me or serving up advertising and is on one of the lists that I'm subscribed to, it will simply be stopped.
Right.
There's no transaction there because it never downloads it.
Right.
It never gets outside of my network. So
Correct.
if what you're asking is, when I go to a website and that ad normally would actually track me just from the request. So
Yes.
add something.com/Robbie's computer tells it that, hey, I'm actually accessing it from Robbie's computer because it's shared that information during that request.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the request never happened because it
Okay.
got stopped at the DNS level. So before it ever left my network, it stopped. That's why the internet seems faster with this versus
Makes
the
sense.
traditional ad blocker.
Yes.
The traditional ad blocker will download the ads, but then won't display them. This will not download them, will not even allow that transaction to take place.
Okay,
Because
cool.
it happens at the DNS level.
Makes sense.
I hope that helps.
It does, yes.
All right.
Cool.
Check out more at pi-hole.net. And of course, you can get all the links for everything that we mentioned right there below.